Peace and Black Power, family. Chauncey, aka Karima, great man of God Media, right back at you once again with another GMOGmedia Spotlight. All right, family, another heavy topic I'm going to talk about. This topic is dealing with the true definition of justice. All right, so let's get right into it. So, the word justice, it gets talked about a lot, especially for the past 2, 3, 4 years with the amount of, I would say, legalized lynchings, killings, murders of black people, people of color on the news every day. And especially when you consider the fact that black people are being mistreated and killed and murdered by police officers, aka race soldiers. Okay. And the word justice gets thrown around quite a bit. When a black person gets killed and their family is out and they're doing a news conference, and one of the words that gets brought up is justice. They want justice for the killing and the murder of their loved one. And you can go on and on with the list of names of black people, unarmed black people, being killed by police officers, aka race soldiers. You could talk about Walter Scott, Eric Harris, Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, Jermaine Reed, Tamir Rice, on and on. Sandra Bland, which I'm going to talk about later. The list goes on and on. Dante Parker, Ezell Ford. The list goes on, and that's just the past year. From 2014 till 2015, right, which is the end of 2015. Countless names of unarmed black people getting killed, mistreated, murdered, legalized lynchings of black people. And that's what I want to deal with, family. I'm going to break down the true definition of justice, because people seem to not have a grasp on what justice is. So let's talk about justice, right? Now, if you Google the word justice, you'll see a definition that pops up immediately, right? And the justice definition, which of course was written by the dominant society, they came up with this definition. So the first is, quote, just behavior or treatment, a concern for justice, peace, and genuine respect for people. And it has synonyms: fairness, justness, fair play, fair-mindedness, equality, even-handedness, objectivity, neutrality, honesty, righteousness, morals, morality, etc., etc. As an example, I appealed to his sense of justice. And they have another definition: a judge or a magistrate, in particular a judge of the Supreme Court of a country or state. All right, and that's another definition of justice when you do a Google search on google.com. All right, so speaking of judges, right? For those who may not know, just recently, a couple of months ago, a circuit court judge out of Kentucky, the state of Kentucky, was under fire for dismissing an all-white juror in a drug trial. Okay. He felt as though there was no diversity in the all-white juror being selected, and the fact that the all-white juror, in his eyes, was not justice, because of the fact that we know that particularly an all-white juror would not favor a black man who is being prosecuted, and they would not be fair and impartial. Okay. So he dismissed that whole entire jury. He dismissed the whole entire jury back in late October. So he's still under fire. He had some social media posts on Facebook, implementing how he felt about the situation, led up all the way to the Chief Justice which is John Minton. And he basically said that the request to remove Judge Stevens is beyond the scope of his responsibility, and if granted would essentially amount to removing Stevens from the bench. So basically they're trying to remove Alu Stevens from the bench and to practice, in court, being a circuit court judge for the state of Kentucky, based off the fact that he dismissed an all-white jury. All right, family. So let's talk about that. When you have situations like that, why do you have an all-white jury? Right now, if you go back into my vlog where I talked about why blacks are political pawns, I broke down and talked about the importance of blacks needing to register to vote. All right. And why is that important? Once again, when you register to vote, one of the process of being selected on a jury panel, you have to be a registered voter. All right. It's just that simple. You have to be a registered voter. So now let's talk about the Census Bureau. All right. So according to a website, which is infoplease.com, it breaks down the amount of black people who voted in the 2012 election compared to the 2008 election. All right. So according to infoplease.com, which is their sources, the United States Census Bureau, right? From 2008, around 16.2 million people voted in the 2008 election. Now it jumped up, but it jumped up a very small percentage from 2008 to 2012. It went from 16.2 to 16.4 million voters who voted in the 2012 election. All right. And we have a population of about 45 million people. So in total, 16, if you round that out, that's around 17 million people voted, from 2008 and 2012. All right. And of course, we are considered quote unquote minorities. Okay. Black people are considered minorities, but the majority or the dominant society, they are the ones who have the most votes. Okay. According to the United States Census Bureau, over 91 people registered as non-black or white voted in the 2012 election. So that more than doubles the amount of votes or registered voters for black people. And that is one of the main reasons why you get so much lack of diversity on the local, county, state, or federal court system for juries. That's the reason why Alu Stevens says there is a lack of diversity, but it's a system. Once again, this is a system, as I pointed out to you. According to the United States Census Bureau, you had over 91 million voters registered as white who voted for the 2012 election. Okay, so when you have an all-white jury, that means the majority of the United States population, they are registered voters. Okay, and only 17 million black people are registered voters according to the 2012 United States Census Bureau. Okay, so that is the reason why the system of racism is white supremacy, because the dominant population is white people. That is the dominant society. All right. Now, I get this question a lot also. How is racism a system? All right. I'm going to actually give you this analogy. I'm going to give you this illustration, actually. I'm going to illustrate this being a system, but a global system of racism. I'm going to point this out to one of my go-to people in terms of what racism is and how it works, which I talk about a lot, is Brother Neely Fuller Jr. So I'm going to play a clip of Neely Fuller Jr. talking about what global racism, which is white supremacy, is. All right, so here you go.
Nitro wrote this to you, Mr. Fuller. He says, here's my question for Mr. Fuller. Can Mr. Fuller explain the meaning of white supremacy is a global system?
Yes, white supremacy is just a global system based on the white people, individual white people, because it comes down to individual thinking, individual thought, individual speech, individual action, each and every day. Now, that means in order for a system of white supremacy to exist, it means each and every individual white person on the planet has to have some participation in that system or some participation against the system. That's what it means. If you have racism, it means somebody has to be a racist. Now, what does a racist do? A racist thinks, a racist speaks, and a racist acts.
Yes.
And when they act, they either do something or they don't do something. There's something that they deliberately do or something they refrain from doing. Okay? So, if you have a number of white people throughout the entire planet who believe in, directly and indirectly, dominating and mistreating people who have color in their skin, then that makes you a racist.
Okay.
Whomever that white person is. And when you have enough of them, now you have a system. Because each and every day they're going to be doing something that has to do with dominating. That's number one.
Mm-hmm.
You got to dominate the person. In other words, be able to tell the person what to do, and
Right.
they better do it. And when you dominate them, you also mistreat them.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
In whatever area of activity that is. And
Right.
when you have a quantum number of white people doing that, you have a system of white supremacy.
All right, so as Brother Neely Fuller pointed out masterfully, when you have a group of people, which is the dominant society, people classified as white. When you have a group of people who think, act, or demonstrate on mistreating a group of people based off color, that is racism, which is white supremacy. As I just pointed out, according to the United States Census Bureau, 91 million people classified as white voted for the 2012 election. Okay? And part of as I pointed out before, part of the jury selection process, you have to be a registered voter. Okay? And I pointed out earlier, only about 17 million people, 17 million black people voted in the 2012 election. All right? In contrast to 91 million people classified as white voted for the 2012 or voted in the 2012 election process. So that is a huge disparity. Okay? So that's part of the reason why the system of racism is a global system, because you have a group of people classified as white that think, act, or demonstrate on mistreating people based off color. All right. And this leads me to this. This particular story just happened this week. And as you may know or may not know, Sister Sandra Bland, who was in Texas earlier this year, lost her life after she was being pulled over from a quote unquote routine traffic stop. Okay. She was pulled over, arrested, taken to jail, and mysteriously killed. Okay. The suspected white supremacist said she hung herself. They classified her murder as a suicide. Okay. And just recently, the story came out where the grand jury, the Texas grand jury that was selected for the Sandra Bland case, they didn't charge anybody of any wrongdoing. Okay? Nobody was charged of any wrongdoing for the murder of Sandra Bland. And once again, the grand jury, I'm pretty sure, now I haven't seen any stories on who were the people or the participants in the grand jury for the Sandra Bland case, but I'm pretty sure the grand jury are people classified as white. Okay. And once again, when you have people who are classified as white and they directly or indirectly think, act, or demonstrate on mistreating people based off color, that is racism. That is systematic global racism, which is white supremacy. All right. And again, this is what I talk about on my channel. I talk about systematic racism, white supremacy. I talk about ways or give suggestions on ways to replace that with a system of justice. And this topic of conversation with this GMOGmedia Spotlight is the true definition of justice, which I'm going to break down later on in this vlog. All right. But once again, you have a grand jury, the Texas grand jury for the Sandra Bland case are most likely classified as white. Okay. And they are the ones that said there was no wrongdoing. Nobody's being prosecuted. Nobody is going for further investigation. All right. Now, I'm pretty sure this won't end because according to some websites, one of them being the Washington Post, the grand jury will reconvene in January, which is January 2016. And they would take up remaining issues, whatever those remaining issues are. But again, the jury is the jury. The jury was selected. The grand jury of that Sandra Bland case, once again, I am pretty sure, and I'm speaking conjecture here. I don't have any primary evidence to indicate that the grand jury is an all-white jury, but by my conjecture, my speculation would indicate, and based off the information I gave you from the United States Census Bureau, I'm pretty sure the grand jury is classified as white. Okay, I'm pretty sure of that. Like I said, I don't have any concrete evidence to back up that claim, but based off speculation, based off the research that I've done, I can only speculate that the grand jury are classified as white people. All right, and that is part of the problem, once again, with the so-called justice system. There is no diversity. There is a very high disparity of white registered voters and black registered voters. Okay. And it's, of course, the main reason is population. Okay. You have more whites by population compared to blacks. Okay. But again, based off the percentage of the population, there are still more white registered voters based off the population of people classified as white compared to black folks. All right. And again, more black people need to register to vote so that these disparities would dwindle down. And it's not going to happen overnight. But again, these disparities would dwindle down where you would at least have one black person that is selected in a jury, as opposed to an all-white jury most of the time. I'm pretty sure 8 out of 10 times you will have an all-white jury selection in cases like the Sandra Bland case. And that's the way it is right now. All right. So, like I said before, I'm going to read to you the true definition of justice. This is going to be the compensatory definition of justice. All right. Written by a black man by the name of Neely Fuller Jr. All right. And like I said on my channel, I follow the ideologies and concept of people like Neely Fuller Jr., people like Dr. Francis Christ Welsing, people like Dr. Claude Anderson, Marcus Garvey, W.E.B. Du Bois, etc., etc. I follow those type of people and ideologies to back up my claims. But I'm going to read this definition of justice by Neely Fuller Jr. from his book, The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, a compensatory counter-racist codified word guide. All right. So, the definition of justice is, according to the book I'm reading by Neely Fuller, use this word to mean balance between people, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person who needs help the most gets the most help, or gets the most constructive help. Apply the word justice to a situation in which maximum consideration is given factors associated with all the 9 major areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war/counter-war. When others use the word justice, ask for a detailed explanation that you can easily understand. All right. Now I'm going to read some notes of the definition of justice. And this is an important note. All right. Now, according to compensatory logic, the word justice applies to all of the people of the known universe. And only when they interact correctly with each other at the same time in all places and in all areas of activity as such, justice, which is balance between people, is a total condition. For example, the word justice cannot be correctly used to apply to any situation that exists at the same time that white supremacy, racism exists. It is not possible for justice to exist and for injustice to exist in the same universe at the same time. Laws do not necessarily produce justice. Balance between people. A law is anything that is done. If what is done does not produce justice, balance between people, what is done cannot be correctly recognized as a so-called law of justice. Such a law is an anti-justice law. It is correct for all of the people of the known universe who say that they have the correct intentions. To say that replacing white supremacy, racism, with justice, balance between people is one of the major reasons for their existence as people. All right, family. So just to break it down, justice simply means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. And that's all people in the known universe. And right now, there has never been a justice system that coincides with that definition. Has never happened in today's society. Never happened. And that's what I try to educate and try to disseminate amongst the people on this channel. I offer suggestions on racism by replacing it with a system of justice. Okay? This is what I talk about on GMOGmedia, family. The biggest problem that we have as black folk is systematic racism, white supremacy. It's the biggest problem we've had. Okay? Biggest problem we have ever since the 1400s, where we were introduced to systematic racism by the Roman Catholic Church. All right? Go back to my vlog where I talk about the myth of blacks being racist, where I break down how blacks can never and have never practiced racism or any kind of racism of any kind. All right, family. So that's basically what I wanted to wrap it up with. The true definition of justice. All right. The true definition of justice is something that we have never experienced. Is a simple balance between all people. Once again, justice is guaranteeing no person is mistreated and guaranteeing the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. All right, family. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I definitely need more subscribers. Spread the word, family. GMOGmedia TV. All right. Make sure you also email me for any advertisements or content suggestions. GMOGmedia@gmail.com. All right, family. Peace and black power.